Welcome to CoSM Art Church on the new moon. Every new moon is a time for intention setting. The sky with no moon appearing is a voidness pregnant with potential. Consider the intentions that you would like to declare in all the areas of your life for this month ahead. Alex will introduce us to the theme of this art church, which is rituals and mystery schools.
Sacred rituals are spiritual technologies for cultivating our relationship with the divine, engaging our imagination with symbols of transcendental meaning. Marriage is a familiar sacred ritual. The wedding couple commits to their unity through vows, the symbol of rings, legal documents, and witnesses. They're different people, spiritually and socially, after the commitment ceremony. Often, rituals are a part of religious practices and they're performed in places of worship. But rituals can also be personal and are often private. Prayer is a ritual common to most religions for aligning us with Spirit anywhere, at any time. Prayer or repeating mantra can transform a mundane gathering or activity into a magical ceremony. Creative actions like drawing or painting can be empowered by prayer to consciously channel spirit into the sacred artifacts. Remembering these 5 steps can strengthen the effectiveness of your prayer. First, remember to praise the Creator. Then, express your gratitude. Next, confess your shortcomings. And remember to ask forgiveness for any transgressions. Finally, request your desired outcome. In some traditions, prayer accompanies prostration, a physical practice showing surrender or homage to the divine. Ritual singing or chanting in a group brings creative expression into direct alliance with spiritual practice. In meditation, our prayer or mantra can be concise and impactful. Mentally following each breath along with a silent repetition of words like in and out, or a mantra vocalizing the sound like om or ah, can harness the mind to realize the power of presence. Ritual practices in many of the traditions can involve complex, elaborate steps. For example, in the Tibetan Buddhist meditations, they may start with a visionary breathing, inhaling healing rainbows of light, and then blowing out smoky negativities of karmic obscurations from within, in order to then connect you with source reality through a mantra, purify your elements of your body and the world, take refuge in the Guru and the Buddhist path, cultivate bodhicitta, an altruistic goal to attain enlightenment for oneself and for the sake of all beings, and then summon the state of primordial presence through mantra. Then you embody a male or a female deity, depending on the moon, in order to dispel negative karma. Next, you dedicate the merit to the liberation of all beings. Mystery schools are treasuries of wisdom and rituals that deepen the life training and spiritual transformation through a death and rebirth of the self, from a fearful ego to identification with immortal spirit. Mystery schools ask us to submit to a higher power, to become a realized individual better able to serve the world. A mystery school is formed by a body of initiates dedicated to preserving, protecting, and perpetuating the mystery teachings. Throughout the ages, mystery schools have hidden in plain sight. They've built noble temples all over the world and provided services to the public, and also behind closed doors for only those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. The initiates are the guardians, the light bearers, the wisdom keepers, the teachers and healers of spirit.
The metaphor of metamorphosis, symbolized by a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly, has long represented a transformation in consciousness from a limited state of being to a higher dimension, with wings to soar. From ignorance to a life-changing catharsis comes a new self. Early Egyptian and Greek traditions performed a mystery play, a ritual reenactment of the life of the gods. The Greek Orphic mysteries centered on the story of Orpheus, who descended to the land of the dead, searching for his wife, Eurydice. The Eleusinian mysteries enacted the abduction of the goddess Persephone by Hades and the sorrow of her earth mother, the goddess Demeter. Divinities that entered the underworld and returned from the realm of the dead brought powers of rebirth. Initiates into the mystery cult participated in a play where they saw the light of immortality in secret mystic rites. Many believe psychedelics played a revelatory role in early religious ceremonies, shrouded in secrecy. The first spiritual experiences and artistic creations ever realized were probably initiated by a psychedelic visionary experience. The first humans to make marks resembling mental pictures had to engage in a powerfully activated imagination. In the groundbreaking book, The Mind in the Cave, author David Lewis Williams suggests that psychedelic mushrooms may have stimulated the earliest urge to paint on cave walls or sculpt a stone talisman. In the Saharan desert of Africa, 12,000-year-old Algerian rock paintings in Tassili caves are considered the earliest known works of psychedelic art, portraying a humanoid bee shaman holding mushrooms with mushrooms growing from the body. A line of mushroom-headed beings scamper across the scene, carrying mushrooms in a trailing stream of spores. These and other early appearances of mushrooms in cave art, found in numerous remote locations throughout the world, appear to prove the relationship between humans and psychedelics. The murals of Selva, Pascuala, Spain, reliably carbon dated to 8,000 BC, and the ancient Guatemalan mushroom stones from 900 to 200 BC indicate the cultural integration of the mind-altering substance psilocybin. It is estimated that only 200 stones escaped destruction by misdirected Catholic missionaries. Smaller mushroom stones were presumably used to grind the sacraments prior to use. Human-animal hybrids and other recurring visionary art motifs appear in the earliest works of cave art. The 16,000-year-old Sorcerer of Troyes in France is a highlight example of shamanic shape-shifting symbolism. Archetypal motifs in ancient visionary art, including solarization, halos, rays of emanating light, X-ray revelations of bones and lifelines, were likely a result of the ritual alterations of consciousness by the artist. The most ancient temples filled with psychedelic art were actually painted caves. Today, the community of CoSM is helping build a sanctuary of visionary art to celebrate the mystic and psychedelic states of consciousness. The history and practice of visionary art is a mystery school that connects us with archetypes of spiritual meaning.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Tyler James Berger, and thanks for tuning in to this month's Art Church. I recently had the joy of interviewing David Yaden, a postdoctoral research fellow at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. Working in the Center for Psychedelic and Consciousness Research, David's focus is on the psychology, cognitive neuroscience, and psychopharmacology of transcendent experiences. David is the editor of Rituals and Practices in World Religions, and his scientific and scholarly work has been covered by outlets such as the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post. Enjoy this excerpt from our discussion on the psychology of religious ritual. I'm wondering how you would define religious ritual and what important functions and benefits it offers to people both individually and in group settings.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in my research of these experiences, one of the primary triggers that kept coming up over and over and over again were religious rituals and practices. I usually think about rituals as a step-by-step embodied process that is shared among some community. I think rituals in practical terms are usually done in a group setting, whereas I think about practices as something that can be done more individually. So an example of a ritual would be, a drum circle with dancing. It involves this kind of communal element to it. Whereas an example of a practice might be prayer or meditation, where you can do it in a group or you can do it on your own. And the thing that really spurred me to be interested in these is, why are these such common triggers of these very powerful experiences? When we think about ritual, we think about exiting the normal, structured social life of a society, of any society, and entering ritual space where a lot of these hierarchies and structures become flattened. And so it doesn't matter, what you do for a living, how much you make, what you look like. Those things, at least, are meant to be left outside of that space. And so you're connecting on some kind of basic level. And I think Durkheim's term collective effervescence refers to this kind of collective air that we all become a part of. And so, Durkheim's view, and this is a French sociologist who studied Aboriginal culture and a number of different rituals across many countries, talked about how every society needs to have these coming togethers, these cyclical moments where we can come together, reaffirm our connectedness, and then go back out into our distinct social roles and the hierarchies and the systems and all of those things. And so he wasn't saying collapse all of it and just do ritual all the time. He wasn't saying do away with ritual, but he's saying ritual is a fundamental part of the rhythm of any functioning society. There's definitely a correlation with health. So we don't know what exactly that's caused by. It could just be that healthier people in general tend to do these things. But it's a compelling relationship. And I think some of the mindfulness literature has shown to some extent that there's probably a causal link where if you engage intentionally with a daily practice, you can expect some benefit to your health and your well-being. I think a decent proportion of that probably has to do with stress relief. I mean, people are very stressed nowadays. I think a lot of us are feeling overwhelmed and overloaded. And a practice or a ritual allows you to set all that stuff aside and breathe a sigh of relief. because you have some time set aside where you're not just ruminating on your worries and your to-do list. And so I think that can be really powerful. So it seems like when people are acutely stressed, they will spontaneously engage in rituals or practices essentially of their own making, or ones that they've learned before. So the classic example of this is, watch a Major League Baseball player when they're getting up to bat. They have so many of these bizarre, well, maybe not bizarre, but unique rituals. And I mean, you can even see this in Little League. You can see just kids spontaneously doing this stuff. And, it's an anxious or stressful moment. You're about to perform. And so it seems like we just spontaneously start to engage in practices and rituals when we're stressed. And there might be a good reason for that, which is performing a practice or ritual reduces your stress and enhances performance on average. And so if you actually get people to engage in some kind of practice or ritual in an acutely stressful moment, they will afterwards be a bit more relaxed and tend to perform a little bit better.
Born in the happenings of the 60s, avant-garde performance art broke all boundaries. Performance art is a time-based art form, typically featuring a live presentation to an audience or onlookers on the street, in a studio, or in any public place. The term performance does not mean there must be an audience or proscenium stage in the traditional sense. Documentation in any form is accepted as evidence to present the artwork and reach the viewers. A ritual is a ceremony consisting of actions performed in a prescribed order. Performance art can resemble both madness and ritual. Part of the spiritual path involves undoing the conventional identity and confronting and integrating the shadow elements of the psyche. Our performances alchemically mirror this process. The idiosyncratic rites we performed helped lead us through progressive stages of self-effacement and reintegration. The approximately 50 performance rites conducted over 25 years move from an egocentric to a sociocentric to a world-centric and theocentric identity. What follows are performances that represented critical landmarks and passages of self-actualization that led us to the founding of an art church, celebrating creativity as a spiritual path. A group of about 25 people joined us in an evening of events intended to stimulate awareness of our united energy fields. The program opened with Alex delivering a slide lecture on life energy, covering the science and the scientists that have practiced and published the results of their research with respect to healing. In the next segment, we sat in a circle, holding hands, and responded to taped suggestions to 3 life energy experiences. One was eye bridging, everyone focusing visual attention on each member of the group for a minute. The second one was releasing and sustaining a minute-long vocal outburst. And the third one was visualizing a group aura for a minute. In the third segment of the interactive performance, guests were invited to stand in mirrored likeness before 2 life energy charts drawn ink on paper by Alex for this experience. The charts portrayed life energy as it was interpreted by ancient Eastern healers, the acupuncture meridians and points, chakras and auras of the body, And the second drawing, a Western depiction of life energy, the circuitry of the nervous system. Viewers were advised to stand facing the charts and reflect as if looking into a mirror, sensing the systems of their light bodies and their anatomy. On our walk home in the middle of Boston, I suggested that the charts were the most successful part of the performance, and further recommended that Alex paint life-sized, gorgeous portraits of all the systems of the body, the esoteric systems as well, the body, mind, and spirit of an individual. For more than 10 years from that time, Alex painted the sacred mirrors.
In a totally dark theater, the audience could hear the soundscape of chanting Tibetan monks. Allyson slowly walked in with white grease paint coating her hair and body and carrying a candle. I followed, and my body was coated with black grease paint. There was a 12-foot yin-yang symbol on the floor, and I sat in meditation on the black spot, facing a skeleton seated similarly on the white spot. Allyson slowly walked the perimeter of the yin-yang symbol, lighting 12 candles and one in the center. As the candles burned down, the Tibetan chanting changed to loud cymbals, horns, clanging. A strobe light outside of the circle of duality pulsed, and Allyson and I stepped out from the circle and under the light rubbed our bodies together sensuously to become gray. Then we picked up the central candle and walked out together in total darkness. In Tibet, prayer wheels are used by monks and laity to increase the power of their meditation. Carved or printed on all prayer wheels is the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, literally meaning, "O hail the jewel in the lotus." With the correct understanding, the mere utterance or inspection of the mantra is believed to transport one directly to paradise. The mantric prayer is dedicated to the Buddhist deity of active compassion, Avalokitesvara. It's said that when Avalokitesvara saw the suffering of the world, he sprouted 1,000 hands and arms to assist all life, each palm containing the eye of unobstructed vision. In the performance of Prayer Wheel, our bodies were covered in gold body paint, and we were bound together with a gold rope that wrapped also around a golden skeleton on my back and a gold baby doll that was in Allyson's arms. A sharp knife was bound also into our ropes. Entwined and attached to the prayer wheel, we pulled the 8-foot cylinder, turning the wheel while intoning the mantra. After 108 circumambulations, I cut the rope attaching us to the prayer wheel, and we walked out of the space, still wrapped with the gold rope and carrying the skeleton and baby.
For 3 hours, we lay motionless, side by side, on the gallery floor with our eyes closed. A red votive candle balanced on each chest. Surrounding us were hundreds of roses and 1,000 apples arranged in the shape of a Christian cross. Candles illuminated the perimeter of the cross. A frightening winged skeleton, angel of death, hovered above us, holding a neon infinity symbol. Gregorian chants were heard throughout as hundreds of guests walked around the gallery or sat on all sides of the activated sculpture, meditating or observing the performance installation.
With a small community of friends and passersby, we laid out 5,500 apples in the shape of a 40-foot goddess right there at Lincoln Center. Then in the heart center of the goddess, Allyson sat amidst the apples in the heart, nursing our daughter Zena, while I performed 100 prostrations at the foot of the goddess. Creating the figure was a ritual acknowledgement of our source of life, the Mother Goddess, provider of nourishment from the tree of knowledge. At day's end, our friends assisted us in reboxing the apples, which were then donated to a shelter for homeless families. At the American Visionary Art Museum in Baltimore, we co-created an alchemical healing installation entitled HeartNet. On a 60-foot wall, I painted a map of the world, and over that map, we stretched a red rope web that radiated from a giant heart of hundreds of silk roses. A stained glass eye in the middle of the heart cried into a small stone grotto surrounded by broken Buddhas. Under this heart, a black skeleton and white skeleton embraced, and from the water-filled grotto emerged an earth child. Above the heart was a golden Buddha, and above the Buddha was a white neon infinity symbol. Above the infinity symbol was a tiny, naked, embracing Ati Buddha sculpture. An interactive performance, HeartNet invited visitors to write a healing prayer or loving message onto a small paper heart and tie it to the red rope net over the map. Over the year of the installation, the HeartNet swelled with thousands of prayers and messages, from dirty limericks, little children's love notes to their mommies, and then passionate expressions of affection and spiritual prayers for the planet. Native languages of the specific prayers of different countries could be found over the appropriate places on the world map. The installation was meant to spread a subtle field of good intentions for compassion and healing for our beleaguered world.
For over 17 years, CoSM, Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, has provided rituals and celebrations to the global love community, and a mystery school, the Magi Art Lab, that promotes the visionary creation of art. CoSM's first ritual was the full moon ceremony, to seek out those interested in creating a sacred site that would include a public exhibition of the sacred mirrors and the finest examples of masterful visionary art. Since January of 2003, CoSM has held an unbroken chain of full moon ceremonies, honoring the importance of cosmic alignment, spirituality, and creativity. We meet on this monthly high tide of the spirit because the full moon is a symbol of the soul, a luminous circle reflecting a greater light, just as each of us are sacred mirrors of God's shining presence. Now, in our 17th year, full moons have offered the wisdom, poetry, music, dance, and magic by hundreds of talented performers and thought makers in our community. For the past year, due to the pandemic, All CoSM programs, full moons, new moons, celestial celebrations, even the annual Deities and Demons program, have all been virtual and have reached hundreds of thousands of members and friends from the love community worldwide. Our church is a regular CoSM event where we make art together, or journal, or write poetry to realize our meditative visions. The ceremony begins with welcoming thoughts, reflections on the topic, and a visualization that might stimulate a creative image. Inspiring spoken word poetry opens the silent meditation, during which there is inspiring music. The meditation is followed by sharing the experience, the art, or the writing that resulted from the session of creative group silence.
The mission of CoSM is to build an enduring sanctuary of visionary art to uplift the global community. Each of us carries a spark of the unfolding force of the universe that seeks expression through our lives and works. We gather as community to activate our creativity as a spiritual practice. God is the divine artist, and cosmos is the evolving masterwork of creation. When we make art together, a new way of seeing may emerge. As sacred mirrors, we reflect and reinforce the redemptive, transformative power of art in each of our lives. May any merit generated by this gathering be offered to the benefit and liberation of all beings. Happy New Moon, everyone!